Thank you. Give it up for the peer advisors again. Okay, so I'm going to talk very briefly about financial aid, partly because we're running out of time, but also because there's going to be more for financial aid in the future. And you might want to, well, I'll talk a little bit about it later, but we might be having a financial aid orientation. It won't be required, but it'll be recommended for students who either are financial aid students or who receive any sort of fee waiver. But let me talk about the basics of financial aid for a few moments. Financial aid, the first thing you want to do, hopefully all of you have done this already. So if you're going abroad starting fall or later, you need to have your FAFSA 2012-13 FAFSA already on file. Hopefully you've done that. You might need to make some corrections still, but hopefully you got it at least filed. For summer 2012 students, that's actually part of your 2011-12 FAFSA. But hopefully you filed your FAFSA. The second thing that we do, if you're a summer student, whether you're doing IOP or another program, you should be turning in the summer financial aid application form. This is financial aid's online application. I hope all of you who want financial aid and are going for summer have already done this. If not, you should do it now because it's kind of on a first come, first served basis. I know there were some problems along the lines, but everybody should be able to do that now. Number 3, IOP students. If you're an IOP student and you want financial aid, the financial aid form was technically due on Thursday. Hopefully you got it in. If you didn't, come and talk to me maybe Monday or even afterwards. But the third step, especially for IOP students, is to turn in that IOP financial aid form. Step number 4, international students, our international office, our office basically notifies the financial aid office. We actually did this yesterday for all of the EAP students, and kind of on an individual basis for the IOP students. We notified the financial aid office of all of our participants, and all of you are actually attached to a budget code, and so you'll have a new budget that's attached to your program. And so that's the next step. So we actually do that. You don't have to do anything. If there's a problem, you can come bug us, but we notify the financial aid office, and probably starting next week, they're going to start actually packaging students on a program-by-program basis. But they'll have to basically repackage you, so that's step 5. The financial aid office will repackage students. So you might be initially packaged as if you're staying here, but they'll repackage you for your study abroad experience after that. So the next steps, if you're an EAP student, if you have a remaining balance, so if the amount that you get for financial aid is less than the amount that you have to pay to EAP, so you'll all have basically budget sheets for your programs, and your budget sheets, as far as I know, they're all online. You may not have actually been notified about them, but you'll get links to them if you've had a link already to your pre-departure checklist. It shows up under the Money Matters tab, and you can actually find the budget for your program. And the budget for your program basically has 2 sections, but one section is where you pay your fees to UC-EAP. If the amount that you receive in financial aid is less than the amount that you pay to UC-EAP, you have to pay the remaining balance. And you would pay that to EAP. You still pay it to the University of California Regents or the UC Regents because it's still a UC program, but you'll have a balance to pay. If your amount is actually greater than what shows up in terms of what you pay for UC-EAP fees, if the amount that you receive in financial aid is greater than that amount, you will actually be receiving a refund. But that refund is only dispersed shortly before your program begins because that's all they can do by law. Again, this will be covered a little bit more in depth as you meet with your financial aid advisor, but these are the very basics. If you're an IOP student, you will likely be required to complete an agreement with the financial aid office if you are hoping to receive financial aid for your program. You'll have to do some sort of agreement that you have to help fill out. It's usually called a Consortium Agreement. Funds are dispersed to the student directly, and the student is required to pay the provider. So for semester at C, you will be paying semester at C yourself. The financial aid office will not be paying on your behalf. And students for financial aid for IOP are responsible for enrolling in the minimum load for a minimum load of courses in order to be eligible for financial aid. If your program doesn't have enough units and you need to do another program in order to get enough units, then it complicates things a little bit further, but only at that point will you be eligible for financial aid. So a couple things to keep on your radar if you're a financial aid student. One is we plan to have a financial aid orientation. The financial aid office isn't 100% certain when this will happen or if it will happen, because they might choose instead to just meet individually with students. But you might want to mark in your calendar, it's not written up here, but you might want to mark in your calendar that it's tentatively scheduled for the second Tuesday in April. I believe that would make it the 10th of April. Tentatively scheduled for the second Tuesday in April at lunch, during the lunch hour. We're not entirely certain that it's going to happen, but if it does happen, if she decides to do a large group meeting in addition to individual meetings, you should plan to attend if you receive financial aid normally, if you plan to receive financial aid, and C, if you receive any sort of fee waiver. That could be a veteran's fee waiver or another sort of fee waiver, because the system for payment is very similar if you receive a fee waiver as if you're a financial aid student, even if you're not a normal financial aid student. So Talisa will talk, she's our next advisor who's going to be presenting. She will talk a little bit about personal finance and some other issues related to this right after me. So welcome up Talisa Gunter.